Welcome to Spiritual Psychology. My name's Renee McKenna, and I bring my 30-plus years as a recovering addict and ex-crazy person turned therapist and shamanic healer to bring you snackable teachings on spirituality, psychology, and all things personal growth. And today I want to talk about letting go of past relationships. And I'm not just talking about sexual or romantic relationships. I'm also talking about old friendships and even family relationships that are destructive, depleting, harmful, or limiting to us in some way. And the first test for me, if a relationship wants to change or be let go of, is that I just don't enjoy my time with that person anymore. Their number comes up on my phone and I don't want to answer it. When we spend time together, it's out of a sense of obligation or guilt, rather than a sense of happiness or excitement looking forward to spending time with them. And after any interactions with this person, if I feel depleted, burdened, guilty, or a big sense of relief that it's over, then I might want to really question my motives for continuing this relationship in its present form, or whether I want to be in it at all. And often in relationship, there is a big difference between what we think or believe and how we feel. And that gap between thought and feeling is often filled with conflict and confusion and a fair amount of suffering. And bringing our thoughts, our feelings, and our behavior into alignment is the essence of integrity and living from our most authentic self. And getting those puppies into alignment can often be a long and challenging process. And that process of internal alignment shows us exactly where we need to grow for our own evolution. And our thinking and belief structures are often very connected with our ego, our own idealized self-image or who we think we should be. And our feelings are connected with our soul, our body felt experience. And feelings are connected to our own deeper truth. Our mind and our ego are often filled with lies, or at least really limiting, often fear-based beliefs, and our emotions and felt experience are an ever-present doorway to connect with our own soul's wisdom and the larger consciousness system. And the ego and the soul are often at odds with each other because each of them has their own agenda. Ego wants to save face, and our soul wants to save our ass. And you often can't save your face and your ass at the same time. And the soul doesn't give a shit about what the ego wants. The soul's job is to care for our most authentic self. The soul's agenda is our unique contribution to the larger oversoul of which we're a part. As there's a bigger thing going on here that we are participating in. The ego's kind of scared about that because it doesn't understand it. And if it can't control it, it feels threatened by it because it doesn't understand that it is actually part of something bigger. But because we are all like cells in a body, the muscle cell or the liver cell, they don't really understand what the body is doing. And they don't have to. They just have to do their own particular job to be the best muscle or liver cell they can be. But the ego might tell the liver cell, oh, you shouldn't be a liver cell. You should be a brain cell or a blood cell. And then we try to be something we're not, and it doesn't work very well. And again, we can defer back to our emotions and our felt experience. And if I'm miserable in my life, that's important information that something needs to change. And whether or not I am willing to change and grow and develop the capacity to live my most authentic self determines the course and the quality of my life and my experience of it. And what does that have to do with letting go of old relationships? And this brings us to the fact or the concept of impermanence, the philosophical problem of change, that life is in constant flow and we are ever in a state of becoming, that the ending or death of things is from a larger perspective merely another step or stage in the perpetual flow of the life force. And relationships are part of that. And the most empowered place to be in any relationship, family, friendship, romance, work, is to be deeply present and engaged, but unattached. That is the place of true freedom. And it is not a place we get to and maintain. It's a perspective or a state of being, non-attachment, being deeply present, and the joy and freedom they provide are a practice that we return to over and over and over again, like a child learning how to walk. And on this stage of consciousness, I think that's exactly what we're doing. We fall down, we pull ourselves back up, boom, down again, climb back up, and the more we practice, the better we get at living deeply and authentically and being free. But just like good parents want that baby to become a toddler, the intelligent design of the universe is always encouraging us to grow. And a good look at the quality of our relationships is like a bank statement for our emotional and spiritual health. And it's a good idea to look at your bank statement or however you track your money. Otherwise, you aren't going to notice that monthly $5 charge that adds up to $60 a year or $600 over 10 years. I just found one of those. What the fuck is this? 6 months I've been being charged $5 a month. Many people are uncomfortable with the idea of looking at relationships as an exchange, but I've found it to be an incredibly helpful perspective. Looking at relationships as energetic exchange is a tool for us to assess and really get conscious about how we spend our time, where we put our energy, and what are we actually giving and receiving in the world. In this middle world of existence, everything is a cycle of inflow and outflow, breathing in, breathing out, eating food, being nourished by it, excreting what no longer serves us. Balance of chaos and organization. If I want to grow flowers or food in my garden, I got to pull the weeds, or some of them will choke those other plants right out. The concept of impermanence in relationship can be really challenging. It's very human to seek security in our relationships with others. And certainly being loved, connected, securely attached is a tremendous source of support, stability, encouragement. Family, friends, community can be like a foundation upon which we build our house, the home of our own being. And if the foundational relationships in your life are nourishing and supporting, that's amazing. But for many of us, our foundational relationships do not support our authentic self. The foundation might be too small, might be weak and crumbling. The foundation may have even served us well, but it just can't handle the addition we want to put on. Or maybe it's too big and we want to live in a tiny home. I totally aspire to live in a tiny house. But our life is our proverbial home, and we have tremendous power of choice, whether we believe it or not, of where we live, how we live, and who we invite in to join us. And I'm going to talk about friendship here because it can be more sticky than a romantic relationship. Getting together and breaking up, getting married and divorced, those are known entities. And they're legal now in much of the world, thank God. Till death do us part probably had a lot of people dying real young in the old days. But I had a client recently really struggling with a lifelong friendship. They'd known each other since they were kids, and my client had even lived at their house for a period of time to get away from her own crazy family. And she really loved these people. It was a big family, and she was like the extra kid. And there was a lot of drugs and alcohol flowing around, but there was also a lot of love there. And it was incredibly nourishing for her to be part of this family. Gave her a totally different experience than the craziness and abuse of her own household. In fact, she said she wasn't sure she would have survived her adolescence had it not been for this big and boisterous family being so warm and generous to her. But this family of choice she lived with was far from perfect. The stepfather committed suicide by blowing his brains out in a car at the beach, and not long after, her friend was almost beat to death by a violent boyfriend. There was a lot of drug dealing, one of the brothers in and out of jail, and over the course of time, the mother of that family, the matriarch, descended into alcoholism and depression, and that warm family unit kind of unraveled. And this was over the course of many years. My client stayed in touch with all of them, but she also got clean and sober and started to do a lot of her own personal growth work. Stopped snorting coke with Mama Michelle and her lifelong friend, and they saw each other less and less. And over time, their get-togethers started to become more painful and dissonant for my client. As her life was getting better, things at the Sullivan household were devolving, and where their friendship had primarily revolved around dealing with whatever trauma or drama was happening in their individual lives, my client was having a lot of success. She moved away and got a whole new social group of people who were also living really healthy, functional lives. And her old friend was still abusing herself with drugs and alcohol and food and crazy relationships. And she felt guilty letting that friendship go. But she actually didn't enjoy their time together anymore. But she felt an obligation because of all she had received from this friendship when she was young. And when we looked at the life force flow in that relationship, what was being given and what was being received, it was like one of those unwanted recurring charges on the credit card. My client felt like she was giving and not getting anything back. But she didn't know how to get out. So we did a very powerful process called a power exchange. I find it much more beneficial than what's commonly known as cord cutting. Did a podcast called Reclaiming Lost Power, number 79. And that's also the title of chapter 8 in my book, Allies and Demons Working with Spirit for Power and Healing. Power reclamation and exchange is incredibly transformative. It addresses our unconscious connections directly on an energetic level. So we connected with my clients' guides and teachers in the clear space of non-ordinary reality and called in the higher self of her old friend. And she took back the life energy that she had given to this friend, and she gave back the obligations, guilt, and some of the suffering she had taken on in this relationship. And this does not remove the genuine love and connection between them. In fact, it can even clarify it by updating or getting current, and with each party taking responsibility for their own life energy. And my client saw that in exchange for the love and connection that she had received from her friend and the Sullivan family, that she had felt a responsibility to actually carry or try to help them with their own suffering and dysfunction. And she saw that although that bound them together, it was not actually helpful. And working with the higher self of another is very powerful. On a personality level, they may or may not have any connection with their own higher self, but everyone has one. And working directly with higher self energy in this way is incredibly healing and empowering. My client felt this tremendous shift inside. And not long after that, because you can't make this shit up, her friend's husband killed himself. And the grieving friend's twins were the same age that they had been when the stepfather committed suicide decades before. And so my client made a radical decision to not attend the funeral. She said the level of darkness and trauma was too dissonant, that she couldn't attend the funeral without being expected energetically to take some of it on, and that from this new configuration of holding her own life energy, she would be unable and unwilling to do that. And what felt most authentic and in integrity was to just not go at all. And it ended their friendship. And although my client occasionally has bouts of survivor guilt, she feels like she did the right thing. On the soul level, we are all connected. And the highest good for one is the highest good for everyone involved, even if that doesn't make sense to the personality self. But my experience is personality level happiness is short-lasting and superficial. And what feels good on a soul level is freeing and life-giving, often unexpected, but definitely infused with the experience that this is the right thing to do, even if it doesn't intellectually make sense. Now, we always have 3 choices in any circumstance or any relationship. We can accept what is, we can ask for or take action for positive change, or we can remove ourselves. Whether your ego or personality self believes it or not, you always have those choices. We may not like those choices, but if you have relationships that cause you angst, resentment, they drain you, or you just generally don't want to be in them anymore, those feelings are information that something needs to change. And determining what that change needs to be, well, that's our personal work. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in doing some personal work, shoot me an email, info@reneemckenna.com. I can tell you more about the transformative processes of spiritual psychology and give you some information about my mentorship program, if that's of interest. We have a growing membership on our new Shamanic Experience Facebook group. Be an exciting place for spiritual practice, for those interested in the mystery and power of shamanism. It accompanies our new digital course, Intro to Shamanism, Lower World. We've created a really easily accessible path to this ancient and profound practice of shamanism for empowerment and healing. If you have shamanic journey experience, you're welcome to join the group. You can DM me on Instagram @Renee McKenna or find me on Facebook. If you like this podcast, please like, subscribe, or leave a good review wherever you listen. And if you'd like to grab a free download of the first chapters of my book, there's a link in the show notes. Blessings on your path until we meet again. This is Renee McKenna for Spiritual Psychology.